We're getting into the summer season, and I've got to start off with one of the primary issues, and that's people going out on picnics and things of this nature. And I'm thinking that this time of year with hot weather, not paying close attention to necessarily the temperature of your food products, how you prepared them, when you prepared them, things of this nature might be a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so foodborne illnesses and pathogens like to grow in hot weather.
Mm-hmm.
And just like they like what we like, warm, sunny, all those sorts of things.
Right.
Lots of oxygen. But there's some things that I would like to talk about today that you can do to help prevent your food going bad and also prevent you from getting sick.
The part most important is getting sick. But
yes.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. Real quickly, the aspect of getting sick, and we hear the term food poisoning all the time. Mm-hmm. In some instances, it can be pretty severe.
Yes. So like one of the ones that I would say you hear most severely is something like salmonella, which would be from raw poultry.
Uh-huh.
It can be found in other things, but that's usually people do not cook their poultry to the correct internal temperature, which is 165, but they might cook it raw or cross-contamination. So they have raw chicken in their refrigerator and it touches maybe lettuce or something that we're not going to cook, and then we're getting cross-contamination that way. Okay,
so it's not a matter of coming directly from the product. Well, it does come directly from the product, but it can be transferred to other products.
Yes.
Okay, we're talking with Stephanie Stevenson again of the Cutter Cooperative Extension Agency, where she is the Family and Consumer Science agent. Mm-hmm. All right, you said there are some areas that you want to touch on today. Let's hear what some of the issues are, because I want to go back to the topic of the transference of some of these bad things, and also what we can do if we think we have encountered bad food. But we'll get to that in a moment. Let's start with your agenda first.
Okay, so I would say the number one thing is to prep as many things at home that you can. But sometimes I know some people don't want to maybe prep a full sandwich because it might get soggy.
Right.
So at least being able to go ahead and have your, let's say we're making like a ham and cheese sandwich with mayonnaise and maybe tomatoes and lettuce. How about we go ahead and already cut up our tomatoes and put them in either a Ziploc bag or a plastic container that seals up, and then we're going to keep everything in a cooler. Keeping things cold is going to be the best way to make sure that pathogens aren't going to grow and bacteria.
Okay.
We also want to make sure, so for instance...
How do you know, do you know how cold to make it?
So the best way to make it cold is to have a thermometer to check.
Oh, I've got to use a thermometer. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But when we're packing our coolers, we want to have ice or ice packs on the bottom. If you don't have ice packs, you also can freeze water bottles, and they'll work just as well. And you also can enjoy water later.
Right.
But you want to have a bottom layer and a top layer on top of the food that you have.
Okay.
You also want to maybe have a different cooler. I know this is getting to a lot of PR parts now, but maybe have a different cooler for drinks, because if you think about it, you might be opening and closing that cooler a lot, which is going to cause it to get a little bit hotter.
I wondered about that.
And so it's just recommended that you maybe have a separate one, and then you do not open your food one until it's ready to eat your food. And if a cooler is maybe out of your budget, or you don't have one, or you just don't want one, we could always eat shelf-stable food too. So like one of those could be if you just ate like a peanut butter sandwich. So you could bring peanut butter and bread. You could have jelly too if it might not be cold. Or you could do prepackaged things that don't need refrigeration. Mm-hmm. You could have snacks that way. You could bring a small cooler for smaller items and sort of bring a clean, like a cutting board or a tray to put things out on. And that way you're doing less with a cooler.
You know, one of the key ingredients you mentioned happens to be that of mayonnaise. Mm-hmm. Is that one of the main issues of food spoiling? Or, I mean, obviously you've got egg and you've got oil. What else is in mayonnaise? But mayonnaise tends to spoil quickly. What about mustard, ketchup?
Those condiments are usually fine. Some people actually leave their ketchup and mustard out. I would recommend that if it's open, it needs to be refrigerated.
Right.
Some actual ketchups now, because it's been popular to have less sugar in them, so they will actually say on them, like, please refrigerate, because you'll notice a discoloration in them.
Okay, is it just the discoloration? I'm curious about the role of sugar.
So it can be a preservative.
Oh, sugar can be.
Yes. So like jams and jellies, if you think of those sorts of things, the sugar binds actually to moisture.
Okay.
And helps congeal it in a way, I guess you would say.
All right. So I mentioned mayonnaise, a primary condiment. What other condiments do we need to watch out for?
I would think anything that you have opened really should be always refrigerated.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of some other things that maybe you would keep in your cabinet. Some sauces don't say to refrigerate them. It should always say it on your.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but to make anything keep its flavor and to not go bad fast, I would say keeping it in your refrigerator or, for instance, in a cooler, because it's going to be temperature controlled, so it's not going to go bad as fast.
All right. What about, you mentioned tomatoes and lettuce and things of that nature. Assuming they have not been in contact with anything, do they go bad quickly?
They would definitely go bad quickly if they're if they're cut or put apart, they're going to go quicker than if it was left whole.
Okay, so cut them at that point. There.
Yeah.
All right.
But you could, if you knew, like, say that morning you're going to go maybe take a bunch of food out on the boat or something. Right. It would be perfectly okay to go ahead and slice your tomatoes that morning
in
and
advance.
take them.
Okay. The other aspect of this, and of course, you mentioned the possibility of preparing the food at home under controlled circumstances. But if you do that, you want to put it in the refrigerator and make sure it's cold before you even put it into the container, into your cooler.
So it's best to have, if you're going to have cold things, to already have them cold.
Okay.
So that way we're just going to go ahead and just add it right to our cooler, and it will hopefully stay cold.
Stephanie, we're talking with Stephanie Stevenson, Family and Consumer Science Agent for the Carter County Cooperative Extension Agency. Do you find people are a little bit more savvy now about the issue of preparing their foods?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are more careful with how they prepare things, and they also don't want to get people sick. You get a bad rep if you get people sick.
They themselves don't want to get sick either.
Yeah.
No. All right. The other aspect of this, and going to the issue of preparing picnics, and of course we're out on the boats and things of this nature. If you have a situation where you may think that a sandwich is bad, in a group of sandwiches, is it unwise to just throw away that one bad item and then possibly consume the others? Do you want to just to assume everything is bad?
I think it depends on your situation. So, for instance, if let's just say you have a bunch of pre-made sandwiches and some of your ice has melted and it got one of your sandwiches soggy, I would say that it would be okay to eat the rest of your sandwiches. Now, if you had raw meat in your cooler and the ice melted and then some of that transferred to those sandwiches, I wouldn't suggest eating it. I think that would be too risky. Because some people, they take these are not too risky, but they'll take hot dogs on the boat with them. Right. So if you are going to do that, make sure you have it on the bottom and then you have your other stuff in sealed containers on top so that there's no chance of cross-contamination.
Curious about hot dogs. I've eaten a raw hot dog many times before. Is there any benefit to cooking a hot dog in advance?
So the benefit to cooking it in advance more, I'd say, is probably for flavor. So some of them, and it does depend too, all beef hot dogs, some of them will say cooked already. All right. Just like how people eat Vienna sausages out of the can. Yeah. And things like that. But some of them may have more.
My goodness, a Vienna sausage and saltine. And the neat thing about that is I've never seen a Vienna sausage that's been refrigerated. Yeah. Of course, it's as long as it's in a sealed can.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's in a sealed can, you are totally fine. That could be an option if someone didn't want to carry hot dogs with them. They could take canned, canned ones.
I'll tell you what. if you don't know the joys of Vienna sausage and a saltine cracker, you haven't lived. We're talking about food safety, particularly in relationship to picnics, things of this nature. And as we get into the summer season with all the boating activities, we've got a lot of people that would like to go picnicking and, just use a little common sense. And one of the things that we talked about a few moments ago, and of course, that was the issue of raw meat. And of course, I'm thinking about your typical sliced meat that you get, deli meats, things of that nature. Is it better to look for cooked meat than versus, deli meat that hasn't been cooked, things of this nature?
I would say in regards to a picnic, or packing food and taking it elsewhere, it would probably be a lot safer and less risky, just because you're reducing the risk of cross-contamination of raw meat with your other items in your cooler. Now, if you can safely, now this is another cooler that I'm going to add to the mix. If you wanted to bring a whole nother cooler for raw meat, you could do that, and that would really prevent cross-contamination. But you also need to have separate utensils and a separate cutting board and all of those things.
It's not like we're taking the whole kitchen with us.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The fact that you've got the possibility of cross-contamination, let's talk about that. The water, so in other words, if the product has been soggy, it's in the water, the water is the carrier of the microbes and things of this nature.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I would also recommend, if possible, to use ice packs.
Okay.
Because they work a little bit better. And then even being double secure, like if you had a container, then putting it also in a Ziploc bag to sort of try to prevent it.
But you've got the situation of sweat.
Yeah.
The ice sweating. Okay. I want to go back to a question I wanted to ask about the kinds of illnesses. We mentioned salmonella. Sometimes you can get really violently ill from food poisoning.
Yes.
Does it impact people differently, for example?
Yeah, so especially maybe younger people, older people, pregnant women, the more at-risk populations, they could get more sick, just like anything else.
Dehydrated?
Yes. And so usually with foodborne illness, sometimes you can look at something like this, I don't know if it's right, but sometimes you can't smell it, you can't see it.
Just because you've tasted it. Mm-hmm. It's touched my tongue, and I said, I didn't like that, it's wrong. Is there a possibility I could get sick from that?
Depending on which pathogen it is, yes.
Oh, okay. Now we're going to get into pathogen. Okay, next question. Is there any protective action I could take if I feel like, I think I've eaten something that's probably, spoiled?
Yeah, I am not sure about that, actually. I would say there's definitely nausea, stomach medicine that could probably be taken. Definitely drink fluids.
Okay.
Do not eat that food anymore. Throw it away. Let anyone else know that probably ate the food that something else is.
No, I'm not going to do that. All right. The other aspect of this, and we're talking about the various pathogens. Fruits, can they also become spoiled to the point where they can be bad for digestion?
So when you mean like if they're starting to go bad, like maybe mold or at those points, they would maybe cause you to be sick, especially if they've picked up other bacteria that might not go well with us.
So I've got an apple or maybe a tomato. It's been in the cooler. It's gotten wet. There may be some transference. Can I wash it off? Will that suffice as far as protecting me from a potential?
Yeah, so you could rinse it off.
Rinse it off.
Yes, and then now I can't say that it's going to get rid of absolutely everything, but hopefully your cooler's already clean.
But we're talking.
Your ice is clean.
We're talking about the skin is still in place.
Yes, so it's not cut up.
If it's cut up, it's a different story because then it's in the pulp.
Yep, and it's in its pores, and then we're not going to probably be able to scrub out whatever we've got into it.
Okay, all right. We're talking with Stephanie Stevenson, again, the Family and Consumer Science agent for Carter Cooperative Extension Agency, here with us this afternoon for a few more minutes. Stephanie, Any other tricks, I say tricks, any other actions or activities we should look for as we are headed into the summer months? We're talking predominantly about picnics, but I'm thinking preparation for the summer meals, things of this nature.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise is a very popular product.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a preference, Duke's versus...
I don't know if I can say it.
Okay. She does. We're going to find out after the program. All right. But are there any other condiments, anything, other tricks that we should think about as we get into the summer season? Because we're going to be looking for fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, things of this nature.
I would say the main thing I can talk about food safety is to keep cold things cold, keep hot things hot. And like that's when it comes, and that could be if you're having a grill out over at your house, if you're having a picnic, if you're doing any of those sorts of things.
Yeah, grills are a perfect example. And by the way, I don't know if this gets into your area, cleaning a grill. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on that?
So I do know, and this is not necessarily work related, but cleaning a grill, that I've gotten worried about those little bristles.
Yep.
So I have a bristle cleaner on my grill. So normally what we do, it's a charcoal grill. We get it warmed up and then take the bristle thing, but then on my other side of my bristle thing is a wooden piece that fits on the grates.
Right.
Because I get worried that something's going to happen.
I've had people tell me to utilize a aluminum foil.
Yeah, and that I've also seen where people just simply, now this is going to depend on how hot your grill is. They take like oil and a paper towel and wipe it down.
Right.
But that's going to be if you can withstand the heat or how hot it is.
Okay.
But we definitely need to keep our grills clean.
That was the next question I was going to ask you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, they say seasoning the grill. Okay. Basically, scrape the grill down. Mm-hmm. Little critters have crawled across it in the evening. Things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Okay. In the process of preparing our grills, is there, and of course, grilling outside now is a big issue as well. Temperature, big issue?
So temperature seems to be an issue, regardless people are grilling or however they're cooking their food.
Okay. So in other words, I got to pay attention to the thermometer.
Yeah. So
the digital thermometers. You recommend those?
Yeah. So that is the only way to know if you have completely reached internal temperature. So which kills everything that needs to be killed.
When you go for internal temperature, mm-hmm. and I guess poultry is a big issue.
Yes.
I'm thinking red meat's not as much of a problem.
It doesn't have some of the more bacteria and pathogens that we're too worried about with the poultry.
How about fish?
So fish is, it really depends on how the fish is handled more before you grill it. But we want to go 145 with fish. Fish is more easier. You can do it till it's flaky. Shrimp, you do it until they get to C's. Right. And so seafood's a little bit easier to cook and less risky on those temperatures because you're going to reach those temperatures when it reaches those levels.
How about shellfish?
Shellfish?
Yeah.
So some shellfish you're going to, so for instance, oysters, more of those, you cook them until they open. Okay.
And all right, we're talking with Stephanie Stevenson. We'll wrap it up here in just a minute. We're talking about, of course, food safety. It's her area of expertise, family and consumer sciences, but food safety and how we can avoid being sick from our own meals, that is. The other aspect of grilling out and preparing for the summer, is it wise to take greater precautions in the summertime because of the ambient heat and temperature?
Yeah, so you want to pay attention to how long, let's say you're grilling out and then you set your food out for everybody to eat. We want to be a little bit more precious of time because since, let's say, today I think it's 85, 88 right. or something, that's a little bit hotter than inside our houses, inside our refrigerator.
Yep.
So bacteria is going to grow faster.
Okay.
So we need to just be a little bit more careful or... for instance, if we're having hot dogs and we set them out, maybe we have a big bowl of ice that we could put the condiments in, or we can set up stuff in to put it on an ice tray.
Good point.
Or even if you, I'm going to bring up a cooler again, if you have a cooler that you can sit outside and have that yep. stuff kind of in. So then that way you're decreasing the chances of it.
Well, the real issue here is to avoid unpleasantry
yes.
From a bad bad food. Do think wisely.
Yeah, and one other thing I haven't mentioned at all, which is one of the most important things, is to always make sure whoever's preparing the food has clean hands, clean clothes, clean things.
Now she ruins it all. Stephanie Stevenson with us. Stephanie, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you.